All right, we're live. All right, welcome back, watch fans. We have an amazing episode for you today. We are back with one of our aristocrat members, Baron Wolf. Baron, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Colonel. How are you?
Phenomenal. And today, look, the topic for today is we're going to be talking about making money, collecting watches, deep value, or as who's the guy from the Roaring Kitty guy? Deep. We're going to keep this a family show. This is a family show, so deep effing value in watches. We might even talk about stocks today, right? Because we have we've announced it before. The Watch Reporter is actually part of a publicly traded company now. The symbol is REGRF for all the Americans. Again, not investment advice. We're not here to give investment advice. Not a recommendation, to buy, sell securities or wristwatches. But with that said, Baron, so it's last time we had you on. You were talking about you just kind of started collecting. I mean, actually, you had watches that you had, you inherited some watches, including some Patek, pocket watches, originally in the family for almost 100 years. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, out of the woodwork, you started kind of into the hobby, as they call it. You bought one watch, and all of a sudden, I hear from you again, and now you're up to, I think, 3 or 4 vintage pieces.
If the truth has to be told, I started out with a bunch of S watches. What's the word? The other, instead of the family friendly version. What's that? The family shitters. Yeah, I was trying to use a family friendly version of that word, but I started out with shitter watches because that's where my budget or my comfort level was. Remember, I'm a deep value guy so it's I don't like to spend really big money, but that's where it started. I actually have a few here, but I'm going to try to hold off from showing them. Colonel, would you like me to show off a couple of these watches and then talk about how I got to where I'm at?
Yeah. I want to kind of start off where we left off. I think when we left off was you were getting so you had some I think you had what is it? You picked up a Vacheron, a vintage, I think it was a 50s vintage Vacheron, right? And I don't think we saw it on the show. I think we saw a picture. No, I don't think you actually had it.
That's right.
Okay.
But maybe if I can even start with a little bit here, let's start with one of the classics that I inherited, and I'll try to hold it up as much as possible. So this is a Rolex Oyster Perpetual model 6564. And I think the audience might be interested to know, obviously it doesn't have the appeal. It's an older watch. It doesn't have the appeal of some of the newer ones. It's clearly not a sport model, but this is what they were selling.
Well, actually, let me interrupt you. This is a timeless classic. I mean, if you look at today, right, the Rolex Datejust, same exact watch. Although this actually is better because this has the, if you bring it up on camera, maybe we can see a little bit of the light, a little reflection.
And then I'll show you the papers because
box,
everything but the box.
So this is, again, and this is, you got the dolphin hand, which is a beautiful look. You got the arrowhead indexes, right? I think this was your father's watch, right? I think you mentioned
it was. He bought it brand new. Colonel, can you remember what the name of the loom was? Because this is the loom that had this was the sort of stuff that got people sick. And they
this is the radioactive one?
Trillium, is that right? Where the heck is Uzi when we need him?
Tritium, I think Tritium is the new one, but I think back in the day they were using what the hell is it? Radium.
Predecessor to tritium, you're right. But I figure they only went with the tritium sort of in the late 60s, early 70s. And this is a 1959 watch because in a moment I'm actually going to show you the papers for this one. So this one has the radioactive. That's why I look the way I do. But yeah, I think that loom is from that.
So this is the radioactive watch.
This is the radioactive one because this is from the 50s. Folks can just check it online, but I'm 99% sure I'm right that they didn't change the loom material until somewhere in the 70s. So I think this is that original.
I think it was the 60s, but they did change. I know there was an issue. Because some guy sued Rolex For, he said, oh, it was radioactive, and there was a whole back and forth, and they said it was a whole issue. But actually, the radioactive dolls are actually very valuable. Everybody wants what they can have. But again, if you look at the Rolex thing, there's tremendous value in, I think, the vintage watches, and that's actually the topic of our discussion today, which is, look, there's a lot of people who are interested in collecting watches, right? Like, even there was an article that came out today, Mark Zuckerberg, Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, all of a sudden he's getting into watches, but at the very high end, actually, he's got kind of weird taste. He's bought some for like 6-figure type watches, Patek, Debut, like weird stuff. Like, I don't know, he's got weird taste. But but here's the thing. Here's what I think is very bullish for the watch market, and for a couple of things. So one is, it tells you, like, there's a narrative going around in the media, whatever it is. They're saying the watch market is dead. This is the watches prices have crashed. And here's what's interesting. This is like saying, like, the real estate is dead, right? Or real estate, everything is local, right? And what you had a major, all of a sudden, the size of the watch market basically probably doubled or maybe even tripled from pre-COVID to now. Like, it basically exploded. You had a lot of new people enter. You had prices went crazy during COVID for, like, the hype watches, like the new Rolex, the new AP, the new Patek. Well, a lot of that Richard, all that stuff went crazy. Prices came down. But what happened is, today you have double, I would say literally double the amount of buyers and collectors in the market than you had pre-COVID. You have double, the market has doubled. And it's gone wider, because you're an example. You're a case study, right? Like, you got into this just recently. Zuckerberg just got, so you're in good company. You and Mark Zuckerberg, you're in good company. He got into this, like, last month, and people, they're not buying just the usual stuff that everybody was chasing. Oh, the Rolex Submariner. Oh, I got to have the Patek Nautilus. No, now they're going vintage, all these different areas. And, the topic today is, can you make money collecting watches? And I believe you absolutely can, if you focus on the right stuff, and if you go after deep value stuff, where basically you're getting stuff at the bottom of the depreciation, or where stuff that is out of favor, because these things come back. This is fashion. Watches are fashion. They go in and out of, like, every 20 years. And now the watches we're going to be talking about today are coming out of that thing. We're already seeing it, and there's incredible opportunities in the market. That's why I'm very excited. But okay, so back.
A couple of quick comments to support your point. Think about it from a collection point of view. Watches, you can get started with a relatively low amount of money, easy to store, easy to maintain. Oh, thank you for putting that up. I was going to ask you about that. Easy to store, easy to maintain, easy to show off. I can take 4 of my watches with me wherever I go. I've got a little leather satchel for them. I actually now have a second satchel, because I try to carry 8, and whoever I encounter on the street has to listen to me talk about them. And if I find someone who's actually interested, I pull all 8 out. But it's that kind of thing. You can't do that with vintage cars. You can't do that with a lot of things. And I think we should talk a little bit about, and you hit on this in the past, what age bracket of watch is a great one to look for. And we'll talk about it some more as I go through kind of my journey. But I think those 70s and maybe even 80s watches, I watched my dad, who was a collector of a bunch of things. And unfortunately, I inherited this sickness from my grandmother and then from my father. She started with clock, those clocks on the wall. And we had to listen to them as kids, that my father inherited them. And then he started it out. And I'll talk about that in a moment.
I think clocks are coming back. By the way, pocket watches are coming back. We had the guy from the Patek Museum on. Pocket watches, I think, are like really like the next thing to go. We're gonna have some surprises hopefully soon with pocket watches.
So yeah, what's gonna happen with guys my age? So I'm 63. I just inherited 10 pocket watches, and I inherited them because my mother just passed, and we went into her attic, and she had, which they're in the back here. I've got about probably 8 of them sitting right there from various relatives who passed them down. So guys my age are going to be inheriting a lot of pocket watches. Some of them are going to be nice ones. Some of them are going to be junkers. But if you're lucky enough, like I am, to know where a lot of them came from, that's going to be interesting. Personally, I love wearing watches, so I don't see myself as starting to collect. That's just a personal position on my part, but that's just a comment there. So we'll talk about all this. Just want to take a second, Colonel, and show folks a little bit about what some of that original paperwork is that comes. This is original paperwork that came with that Rolex that we just showed, that we just looked at. So this is the actual receipt, and you can see it was $80, 10% federal tax, 3% New York City tax. Now, this is actually not my dad who was listed as sold to, but my dad worked in the city, and a buddy of his must have connected him with this fellow, and we used to call him Monsieur Comment, who's passed away. And as far as I recall, he didn't have any children, but he worked at Rolex. And I think through a friend, he got connected with us. And Monsieur Comment bought this on the house account. You'll actually see house account. So he probably got
Bring it up close. Bring it up close. Let me see this. Bring it up close. What's the is that hang on, I can't, okay, so it's hard to see. Okay, stop. So hold, don't move. Look at that. Was it $50? It says $50. 80. That watch sold for $80 in 1959.
And yes, and it came with the certificate. This is what some of these guys we call it the chrono certificate. So folks, when you're looking for vintage, if you can get this document, this is literally from that Swiss authority, and they tested this individual watch. This isn't some kind of this is done for this direct watch. You can see it's typed, letters are typed in. There's the serial number right there of the particular watch. And this is, this was the chronometer.
That it passed the test. That it passed the chronometer test. The test.
Not only did it pass the test, but it tells you exactly what the results are. It's like you going to the doctor and getting your results given. So that's what one of these original certificates looks like. And they call it I've heard it called a chronometer, a chronometer document. See all the stuff here, and this is the back side of it. This is not unique to this particular watch, but just flipping back, all this stuff is typed in for folks. Little young guys won't remember this, but there's something we call the typewriter, and this was all typed in for this particular watch. This is all, if you can look at it closely, you can tell the difference of what was actually typed on a typewriter versus what came pre-printed on it. And here's the date that it was tested and where it was tested.
1958, October of 1958. Wow, we're coming up on the anniversary of the watch. We're coming up on the birthday.
We are coming up on the birthday, and then it was sold.
So here, so what's interesting? Speaking of value, so this watch was $80, 70 years. I'm not sure what the values are today, but I think it's probably close to 10 grand. It's got to be close to 10 grand.
It's possible because of the paperwork that it gets closer to that. Yeah. I was going to say more like half that, but then again, for the right collector, because I've got a warranty card.
the paperwork adds, it doubles the value basically for that. So we're saying it's probably, I think it's like, again, I don't know. This is a 34. So maybe let's call it 6,000. Easy 6,000.
Okay.
So that's almost I don't want to say 100x, but it's roughly 75 times. That's better than inflation. Much better than inflation.
Much better than inflation. And I'll talk to you a little bit about why in my watch journey. Okay, I inherited that. And then I bought this Vacheron. But I'm going to talk to you about my journey because there's another element to it where I'm going back and I'm buying Rolex, and I'll tell you exactly why. But here's the Vacheron, and this is model 4555. Let's see if I can get this in focus. So I bought on eBay.
We got to see this has the honeycomb dial, right? Can we get a close up?
Honeycomb dial. Yeah. You were actually looking at this when we first started communicating. You had been watching this. This was an eBay find, And what was really neat about it is the guy, this was the son of the original owner. And the original owner was a guy who was based in Italy and bought this, believe it or not, on a PX. You've heard of Rolexes being sold on a PX, but never a Vacheron. I've never heard of that. But that's where he bought this. It's rose gold and all original and in amazing condition. Absolutely amazing condition. The owner really took care of this watch, had it serviced. A couple of things that are really, really neat about this, because I have another vintage watch, which I'm not showing right now. I could go get it if we needed it, that I inherited from my dad. Not the quality of the Vacheron, but exactly the same size and a similar style. But this Vacheron, what really sets it apart are the applied numbers. It doesn't show well in the camera, but those numbers are raised, and they really give off a lot of, they reflect in the light a lot, and they just come off really, really nicely. Small second hand. And oh, by the way, manual wind. But if you wound this thing, it has, you probably can't hear it, but it has the most beautiful winding sound.
Yeah. I love manual wind. I mean, I think I love manual wind watches. There's something about it. It's like, when you get up in the morning, it's like you wind the watch, it just brings back, memories of like, my mom, she would wind the watch, like grandparents, because they didn't have automatic watches. They had manual wind. It's a nice feeling. It puts you in touch with the watch. It's like it's interesting. And this is the Vacheron. So, you got the certificate? It came with that?
It came with it, and came with a case.
And the box.
This was so wonderful because I had the family story. I had the story, even though I don't have the original invoice, but I have the story of how it passed down through the family. And this was just one of these amazing finds. And yeah, there was a price I was willing to pay. Apparently, I was willing to pay more than the next guy because I was the guy who finalized the deal. I'll also say I'm a married guy, so a lot of this is, my wife has a big role in this. So she approved of the purchase. So when you're married, you kind of have to, and you want to sleep in the same bed as your wife, you have to run these things by her. But she didn't care about the paperwork, but I think some of the folks online will.
No, this is great. It's got the date, right? It's got the
yeah. So this is, so there's our model number, 18 karat, with the model number, all of that.
What's the model number? Can you read off the model number so we can maybe find an image of the watch? It's a crisp image. Yeah. What's the model number?
It's a 4555. It's going to be hard to find one. I sent you a couple of photographs, and I don't know if you might be able to.
I couldn't. I don't have. Hang on, I don't have them here. But you know what? This no, they're in the email. They're in the email. I can't pull them out now. But the watch has a beautiful honeycomb dial, which is. Hang on, we have an image here. Hang on a second. So let me see if we can do a share. I'm going to do a screen share. So it's an amazing watch, and I'll tell you what, the idea of getting the paperwork that you almost never get, the box and the paper. I don't really care about the box so much, but it's nice. But the paper, but the certificates, it's really nice to have that, and it really does add value. You have the whole thing together, and that it comes. The original owner story, that connection, I think is really good. So this is the watch, right? This is the one.
Pop that up a little bit bigger, possibly, because I want to point out a couple of really interesting things about it.
Okay.
Let me see. That really make it. But I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, I mean, just look at the quality. You can see that the dial is in impeccable condition, right? You can see that even the bezel is, everything's very, very clean. You can see the crystal is in excellent condition. Now, here's something that was interesting to me about, do you see the Vacheron Constantine label there? This is before they actually put the Maltese cross on their watches. The Maltese cross is a more recent thing. So you can date watches to some extent, because if you look at these older ones, so this is early 50s, based on what I've learned and what the son of the original owner told me. He thought it was about 1952 that it was purchased. But if you look, it would be be into the late 60s, early 70s is the first time you're going to see the Maltese cross on a Vacheron. And you're also going to see that the ampersand in the middle is going to leave. So it's going to be Vacheron Constantine rather than Vacheron and Constantine. And you're just going to play different.
You know what's interesting about your watch? So if this was bought on a PX in Italy, so this is like in the 50s, again, early 50s. So this is right after World War II. I don't know if the kids today, they don't know when that was, but it's right after the war. So the economies are basically, the European economies are pretty much devastated. I mean, they're just starting to kind of come back, you know. So I guess Vacheron, I guess these companies, they were just desperate to distribute this anyway. I mean, like today, you wouldn't find Vacheron being distributed on a PX, on an army base, right? I don't think even Rolex does it anymore. And everybody's very particular about the boutique only, whatever. But back then, these guys were desperate to just sell. Whoever would pay for it, they were desperate to sell it. And I bet the prices were pretty good back then. I mean, obviously, it was never cheap. None of these things. I mean, listen, even the $80 in 1959, that was not cheap. That's like the $80, you know, what is that? That's 70 euros almost. That's like the equivalent of probably a couple thousand at least. So these things were never like free. It was never, it was always in the thousands of equivalent. It was always like, you know, a couple of weeks pay or whatever it was. Oh, we got another one of our aristocrats. We got Memovox from Denmark. From our global, we got a global. That's right. The Watch Reporter channel, the community, global audience, Denmark.
Greetings, Memovox.
The king of shit.
Good to see you.
You know who's a big fan of this?
Well,
you know who's a big fan of
this? Colonel, I was
Ronnie.
I'm sorry.
You know, a big fan of the Vacheron 1950s and the shaped cases is Ronnie Madhvani. You saw the interview with him. He's like the mega collector. He's an Indian guy. He lives in Uganda. He's big business guy in Uganda.
You've had some terrific interviews. I really love some of the interviews of most, if not all, that you've had. His really just was so terrific. I actually have been looking at maybe traveling to Uganda and seeing if I could actually meet the guy. He's just a super interesting fellow.
He would take you on a tour. No, seriously, if he came, he does it. He will take you on like a safari, whatever it is. He
strikes me as the kind of guy you could just spend a lot of time talking to. He's just a really neat guy. Unfortunately, I can't get on Instagram because I've got my security somehow screwed up and I can't fix it. Otherwise, I would follow both you and he, maybe somebody else, but that's it. So yes, he's the man. He's the man. One of your great interviews.
But he was saying, he basically, and he kind of knows where the market is going. He's actually very bullish on Vacheron. He was saying that's very undervalued. The 1950s. You know what's happened is like, you know, everybody knows Rolex, everybody knows Patek, but really Vacheron is at that moment it was considered a much more prestigious brand than Patek or others. So Vacheron is really, you know, I think it offers a lot of value. And like the watch that you bought, I mean, do you mind saying how much you paid? Because it wasn't a lot of money compared, relative to what's out there. I mean, how much? What was
the final price? Was about $4,500, $4,600. The reason it was such a great price is I think people are afraid to buy from an individual. So he was not a dealer.
Yeah, for sure.
And just like with Chrono, if you buy from a private seller on Chrono, the agreement you've got is no returns.
Yeah.
In contrast,
you're taking a risk when you buy. Yeah, when you buy private, you don't know. You know, it's basically like, you know, there's no accountability really. So you're taking a risk.
Now, if you're buying from a dealer on Chrono, you're going to have some protections. But explicitly written on Chrono's terms of service is if you're buying from a private seller, the watches are by default non-returnable. Now, I could go down that whole path because I just had one recently that I sold to a guy and I didn't realize that there was a blemish on it. And we struck a deal. I said, look, I want you to be happy. I know it's not worth my life to make you unhappy. And we settled something outside of Chrono, but then he paid me the full Chrono price. It's an involved process, But the point is that you want to be perceived as somebody, if you're in this space, as somebody who's honorable, whether it's on Chrono, whether it's on the eBay, and I've sold on both, because look, the fact is I've owned a lot of shitter watches, and thanks to the Colonel, my arm got twisted, and I started getting into gold, in particular precious metals, not white gold. I can't get my arm around that. I can get my arm around yellow, and I know you and I don't see eye to eye on that, but that's
I have nothing against. No, I have nothing against. I'm just against full bracelet. Like I'm wearing the day date. I'm wearing the day date, which is yellow gold, but I can't wear a full. It's too flashy. But on a strap, I think it's the right. I notice I prefer a dress watch in yellow gold. But if it's a bracelet, if it is a full, you got to have white. Otherwise, it's like too much.
I'm with you 100%, and I'm going to show you in a second my day date journey.
Yes, of course, Craig. This is 100% live. 100%
this is
live.
100% live, Craig. Yeah, yeah. The Colonel had to deal with me. So King of Shaped Lugs, Memovex. Hang on a second now, Colonel. You're just going to have to take a little bit of a break on the only caring about a few brands. This is Baume & Mercier, and I purchased this on Chrono recently. But look at those lugs. Look at those lugs.
That's beautiful. That's actually beautiful.
Okay.
This is what? This is the 60s, early 50s, 60s? What is that?
I haven't been able to date it, but I would guess 50s. So this is, and again, just to your point about, you've talked in the past about Universal Nev, you've talked about a bunch of brands, classic Baume & Mercier, classic Longines. Ronnie, actually, I think was the one who said Longines.
He has that, yeah.
They really support the vintage watch buyers. And so folks, for getting into this, because we're going to talk about Patek, we're going to talk about Rolex. Yes, we're going to talk Audemars Piguet, but for folks who are trying to get into this and don't have the budget to do some of those things like this, and this, I'm going to say this was less than $2,000 on Chrono, and just a really unique piece. It currently my favorite. This is the watch I wear the most right now, and just those lugs. So but again, it's not what we came to the show for. So let's
But while we're talking, so the topic is making money collecting watches, right? So it's not just, listen, here's the thing. I think if you're smart about it, right? If you're smart about this, you're gonna basically, you're not buying a watch. You're basically investing in it. Because theoretically, you're not going to sell it. Maybe your heirs will sell it. Who knows what's going to be in the future? Right. But the reality is, it's a store of value. And if you go in smart, like for example, your Vacheron, you paid $4,500. Really, that's like retail. That's at least a $6,000 watch. Easy $6,000 plus. But that watch, and that market is rising, right? So it's a little bit. It's going up slowly, but that watch is going to compound, I believe, at 5% plus, 10% a year. Actually, it's going to increase because people are just rediscovering. I think that watch in a couple of years will be, 8,000 plus. Again, not investment advice. This is not a, financial advice. We're not whatever, but it's the reality, right? Like the day dates. All of a sudden, Rolex day date now prices have exploded in the last couple of years.
So we'll talk about my day date in a second, and also a little bit about where I came from on this one. Do you like the Casio? Well, actually, best rugged watch in your opinion. If you're going to buy a dress watch, there's my day date. And I, for a long time, I said I'm never going to get into the Rolex bit. But what I realized is this Vacheron of mine, I can't wear it in rugged conditions. For me, rugged conditions is day-to-day living.
Yeah.
And because that crystal is susceptible, and it's a pretty standard crystal, but you know what? That watch is not going to be as hardy as this one. And this one's also going to have water resistance. It doesn't, it's not like your Casio GWG 1000, which I don't know much about. But this is why I'm back to Rolex. I'm back to Rolex for a couple of reasons. This is from a
Hold on, wait. Baron, can I interrupt you for a second? Because we got an Earl. He's a Texan in the Earl business. He's in the Earl business. And a very famous Texan who wore, who the famous Texan who wore day date is, right? Baron, you know who that is?
No, Lyndon Johnson.
No, That's one.
That's
Number
one.
one.
The other one, I was going to say, one of the oil barons was one of the was the two brothers, the guys who cornered the silver market. What was they were the oil boys? Maybe E. Craig can help us out a little bit. But go ahead.
Hang on. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up. Hang on. I'm going to bring it up. Hang on.
Jeez, I'm going to go down
I'm
the whole list.
Bring it up on camera. I'm going to bring it up. Here we go.
Names.
Hang on. Is this on?
The text.
Okay. Red Adair. Red Adair. Do you
As he was
Red
putting
Adair?
out fires in Kuwait. Red Adair.
Red Adair, you know, he was the famous, what do you call it? There was a movie made about him, right? I think it was called Hellfire. He was
the guy that when all those fires were on in Kuwait, when Kuwait was invaded by Iraq, he was the guy who came in and put out the fires because they, all these oil fields were on fire. And he went out there. That's a ballsy guy. Look at that watch. No wonder he was able to put out those fires. So look at the ad. So this is the fame, and Rolex always made great ads. So the ad says, if you ever needed proof that a Rolex needs no pampering, watch Red Adair in action. And he was basically he became famous for putting out these oil fires in the Texas oil fields. And hang on a second. He was most famous for
John Wayne made a movie about him. John Wayne did a movie, I think it was called Hell Fighters or something, you know?
I vaguely recall that. But again, where he got the most fame for the average Joe was during that, when he was putting the fires out in Kuwait. Yeah. He'd been doing it in Texas for a long time, but he was making the nightly news. They were doing countdowns because there were 100+ oil wells on fire in Kuwait after Iraq invaded them. And he came in there and one at a time put them away. So yeah, by the way, right, we're looking at a day date and we're looking at a gold day date, so he can be as flashy as he wants to be.
Listen, I think any proper Texan should only wear a gold watch. Gold Rolex day date is like, that's like an official. If you're in the Earl business, you definitely need to have a gold Rolex. And yeah, you can wear. Listen, I mean, so this is an ad from the '60s, right? Yep. And the watch takes a beating. I wear it. I have it on a rubber strap, and I go swimming with it. I play golf. Whatever. I mean, it's. And if it gets damaged, it's very easy to repair. It's relatively affordable to repair. The parts are accessible, no problem. You're not gonna. But if you damage a Vacheron or something like that, you may have some issues. This is universal. Anywhere in the world, you can get this repaired. And again, the prices are going up on day dates. I've been talking about these for the last 6 months. I said, guys, you got to get into this market now. And price, I think the day dates, actually, I could check, but they're probably up like, I don't know, 50% in the last couple of months. People are discovering this.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. So just take a look at that crystal from the side. That's why this is look at how thick that crystal is, that acrylic on that crystal. That's why you don't have to worry about scratching this thing, or even if you do, you're never going to actually crack the crystal. See, on some of my others, I've cracked the crystal in the past because these were just thin crystals. I'm worried it didn't happen on the Vacheron, but I got very close to cracking the crystal here once. Fortunately, I didn't. But I was, out, and what if I'd cracked it? That would have been problematic. I would have had to do something quickly. I was not near home, and I would have had to put it in my pocket for the rest of the day. But when you look at the Rolex, look at that. Just look at how thick that acrylic crystal is. And to your point, I wish I'd actually saved the one with my dad's. I didn't have it up reconditioned by an authorized AD, so I could have gotten the crystal back. But that crystal was really beaten up. But he'd had that for years and years and years. And again, same thing. Look at how thick that crystal is. That's why. So it's the water resistance plus the crystal. These things will take a beating and keep on ticking, right? So the other thing that, Colonel, the other thing that I want to just pitch people on, because again, I went from having no interest. I actually said I'm not going to go down the Rolex path. But what I came to realize is a lot of these other watches, vintage. So I'm interested in vintage watches, and they just don't have they're not tough. If I'm going to wear these, I need a watch that I can wear and not worry about. And that's what I'm getting here. The other thing that's really cool and really appealing about this is that so I bought this one with a champagne dial. I don't like the champagne dial, but I got a good price on this, and I got it from somebody and I got a good price on this.
I think it was Eric Wind, who we've had on the channel.
So this one, and he disclosed everything. It's got a little bit of a blemish on the back. Do you see? There's a little. This is not a perfect back case there. That's the only blemish on this.
Yeah,
but I certainly don't care, and I got a great price on it. And by the way, Eric and his team, very professional, very happy with them. There was a small issue. They took it back and handled it beautifully. By the way, her straps, I'm not into rubber. I'm going to leave that to the Colonel. I know he's a rubber guy. I prefer leather both in the bedroom and what I'm wearing. So this is a Hirsch strap. This is a beautiful Hirsch strap. This is another Hirsch strap, and this is a Hirsch strap. I like Hirsch straps.
So Hirsch makes great straps. So the thing is, so I got I had this on leather, on crocodile strap, whatever. Now I got this this rubber strap. I don't know if you can see. So, and the reason is because I'm wearing it, I'm wearing it like swimming, like or whatever. I can wear this, and but this watch is 1970s, 1978. So this is a 45-year-old watch plus. And if it was a 50-year-old watch, it could still take a beating. But again, you put on the rubber, it's much. I mean, just for my personal what it is. But in the winter, maybe I would put it on a croc, whatever. Again, the great thing about the day dates is, like you're pointing out, you can change out straps, you can change out dials. There's a lot of versatility.
Exactly. That was what I was about to say, because you can change out that dial. In fact, yes. Thank you, Craig, for an oil man. You have good taste. But changing out that dial. I'm going tomorrow into New York City because I'm about 2 hours out of the city, maybe 2.5. I'm going to go in, and one of the things I'm going to do is to look for a different dial. I'm looking at ideally for a silver linen or a blue like yours. I want to ask you some questions about that, or a white. Yeah. Unfortunately, the only blue that I've found so far is very expensive because I think it's the original Rolex. It's a sort of a blue gray, and even the silver linen is a little pricey. The white I can get for less than $1,000. But I want to ask you some questions about, because I think you purchased some dials, and I also want to ask you a little bit more about straps. I'll just take 1 second. For straps here in the U.S., the site that I've been very successful with is Watch Obsession. They're actually, I think it's a UK company, but they sell here in the US, and they have a Philadelphia shipping location, and never wear it. Wait, can you post that again? Never sell it and wear for. Yeah, but you know what? I am.
What's the point? What's the point? I mean, you gotta wear it.
I want to wear it. I'm here to wear it. I don't. I can do other things. I can put them away. For me, I want to wear these. I want to enjoy them. And everyone's got their thing, right? But that's it. So just again, how the great thing about any Rolex is, as you said, easy to get it serviced. I think Ronnie may have made that point, or somebody else as well. Easy to get it serviced. You can get parts. Yes, now they're trying to bring a lot of things in-house. Maybe that's with a new one. I don't think so much with the vintage. They're rugged, but they look good. And you can make those changes with that dial. I don't ever see myself wearing this with a metal strap. I'm a leather guy, and I think I said that before. But this is how I'll wear it. And by the way, this is how I bought it, also with a different strap that went vintage. provided.
Yeah.
But
that's I would say with that. So if we want to just talk about dials, and then and listen, what it is. I figure, look, why not? We can plug the stock because the market is open. I want to plug the stock while the market is open. We'll talk about a little bit about this stuff because I know you're a stock guy. I thought because you're
come back to this.
But we'll talk, but I want to kind of close out on the dials and straps, and maybe we can go back to it. But you got to be really careful when it comes to the Rolex dials on buying secondary, because there's a lot of these Fugazi dials where either they're reconditioned, something they're not. It's you got to be a real expert. And I don't know. If I would buy, I think Eric, I would get his advice maybe, or some. You got to be careful because there's a lot of dials. There's just a lot of fakes, a lot of this, that. But I bought this dial. I paid. Actually, when I got this watch originally, I had the champagne dial. It came with, and I hate the champagne dial. Then I got a black dial with gold Roman numerals, which it was a 90s. It was it was a 90s thing. But I think the way to go is the gold linen dial, which I thought was a little bit kind of tacky, but I think it's a beautiful look now. The linen dial, that texture is actually beautiful. The linen, it's beautiful look, and they're cheap, and it's a great look. The linen dial.
And there's also a silver linen dial. The one I'm looking at is actually silver, because I'm looking to have a little bit of contrast with the leave the gold here. And by the way, just like you, I'm in 1807. I've got that bark, which is the only way to go. That if you
have the bark? Oh, is that the bark? Is that the bark? Oh, that was the bark. Oh, look at that.
That's the way. And you've got the bark, don't you?
That's the bark. Yeah, of course. The bark.
Yeah, I knew you were a classy guy.
The bark. I have the bracelet, the bark bracelet.
And you've got the bark bracelet. I do not have the bark bracelet.
Yeah. You don't want. You don't need the. Yeah.
See, that's another thing you could do. If you decided, I actually at one point considered buying an 1803, even though I didn't like that bezel or bezel, however we're going to refer to it. I really wanted this bezel, and so once I found that Eric had one of these at a price that I thought was within my budget, I went right for this, knowing right away that I was going to change out the dial at one point. But I really wanted that bezel. I wanted that bark.
Hold on. So speaking, wait. Let's pivot. Wait, Baron. Let's pivot. We're talking about Eric. We're talking. So we're talking about the stock now. What's interesting is this. Look, the Watch Reporter, right? The community. We've developed actually a pretty decent sized community over the last 9 months or so. That the YouTube thing has been Instagram, the email list, and all that. And what I realize is this. Right now, I'll get into the whole thing, but here's the thing. So I just mentioned this earlier. Hang on a second. Let me pull this up because I want to bring this up because the stock is running. The stock is on the move. It's exploding. It's exploding. We got to.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up on the screen. Let me bring it up again. Nothing we say here is not investment advice. We're not getting into investment advice. This is not a recommendation to buy or sell securities. Hang on a second. But the reason I want to mention for our audience is because, frankly, I don't want people coming back to me later and saying, "Oh, how come you didn't tell us?" Blah 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 blah, whatever. And again, this is on the Watch channel. We're not here. We're not here to sell you the stock or anything. But I do want to mention because why not? I think it's an interesting opportunity. We're talking about watches, stock. It's the same stuff. Right? It's the same thing, right? So the idea is this, right? The idea was, look, we have. So the company is public, and I'll go into my background. Why, again, my background is in finance, helping companies go public, helping them, increase their stock price, all that stuff. And you know what, right? And what I realize is, the watch market, it's a $31 billion industry, and there's not a single stock out there that's a pure play on this watch space. Not a single stock. And we see there's a lot of VC money, a lot of guys like, you got the Tom Brady, the Jay-Z, you got, Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund guy, Bernard Arnault, the guy who owns LVMH. They're all pouring money into the watch space, into watch market platforms and all that. And for the average investor, there's not a single way they could participate in this market. So I realized, hey, this is an opportunity where this company goes public, and then we could also merge in and acquire another company in the space. Yeah. There could be a real opportunity. But here's where I'm going with this. Here is because people are asking what's the value in the stock and all that. And what I realize is this, and we could talk about this, is look, we got about, I would say we have a community of roughly 18,000. Let's call it a community of about 18,000. We got 3,000 on YouTube. There's about 14,000 on Instagram. We got the email, all that stuff, right? And out of that audience, I would say about, 10,000 guys are, guys like you and me. We have a collection. We have maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 watches, and we have a couple of Rolex, whatever. It could be, 10,000, 20,000, 10 to $25,000 collection, whatever it is, right? But if you do the math, that's about, again, 10,000 times 10,000. That's about $100 million in potential inventory, right? And then because you've seen, we've also had interviews with, some guys with heavy hitter collections, guys who have, $1 million, $5 million collections. We've had about 3 of those guys. We've got 3 or 4 of those guys, and I could tell you that we probably have about 40 of them in the audience, because the old rule of radio is, anytime somebody calls in on a show, if one person calls in, there's probably 10,000 guys who are listening. Because for every caller, there's 10,000 listeners. Very few people, no, seriously, listen, very few people have the balls to go on a live stream, especially this channel, the Watch Reporter channel, because, we get a little bit, we're very direct, Wolf, so we're not going to cut corners. Oh, what a beautiful watch you have. Oh, it's so great. Oh, your Rolex Submariner. You're oh, what an amazing watch. Congratulations. We don't do that bullshit, right? This is like, it's a very real show. So we have probably $200 million in this kind of universe. And what I believe is, on this, the e-commerce side of the business, is I think we can have probably 5% of our audience is going to try, or of that volume is going to show up on our e-commerce platform when we launch. Okay. And which means roughly $10 million. And why is this, right? I think there's a need. Again, I'm as a watch collector, I've bought, sold, I've had good experiences, bad experiences. You've had good experiences and bad experiences. And one of the things I think that's missing in the watch space is, really a professional platform where you get excellent service, but there's also a wide range of quality inventory, not just vintage, but also modern stuff. Whether you're talking about, a $200,000 Patek Perpetual Nautilus, or you're talking about a $4,000, $5,000 Vacheron, but where that it's going to be as described, that you can return if there's an issue. There's, it's a professional organization. It's not a fly by night like a lot of these guys are. It's kind of like the used car. The watch market is like the used car business. A lot of times you feel like you got to take a shower after you're talking to these guys, especially when you're selling a watch. So I think we got a really tremendous opportunity in the space, right? So I think that, and again, so you're a case in point, right? Like I said, because again, I was telling people, okay, I think, we have 200 million in this kind of buying power, right. I'll call it. There's 200 million in buying power in the audience. I think we'll get about 5% of them to buy. Not everybody. Again, we only need a small percentage, and that's $10 million that we could generate in revenues. And by the way, you're a case in point, because I bet. Again, we didn't talk. I bet if I had a Rolex Day, whatever, and you would have bought it from our channel. I mean, whatever. I'm sure you'd have bought it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Colonel, can I add a couple of quick?
We have a guy looking for a Patek Nautilus that's 200. Other watches that 100 grand, 200. They would buy the watches if we're offering them. So I know that when we launch our e-commerce platform, I mean, you're a case study. I know that we're going to do business, and I think that's going to move the stock. So now let's with that
Colonel,
said,
can I just add a couple of things?
Yes.
Because I think I want it, and then but all tied in the stock. Here's where I see the value proposition. There is one avenue, and only one avenue, that I can think of right now where someone can participate in the watch industry, and that's Watches of Switzerland. I believe it's listed in London, and you're talking about a market cap. I just looked it up of $1.14 billion. That's exclusive. But also,
they're a retailer. They're a bricks and mortars. They're doing jewelry. It's a different, it's more of a retail jewelry business. But there's no pure play watches. E-commerce. That's what we're doing. But you're right. Watches.
But Colonel, it's not just that. It's the community aspect of it. Because if you think about it, what this will enable, with Watch Reporter and with this site, is it's becoming a community. You're introducing somebody. Someone can learn through videos like this about watches, about collecting. How do you start? What's your path going to be? Where and learn from actual collectors, people who've done this, and that coupled with the e-commerce piece. That's the difference. Because to me, that's the biggest value proposition. You can buy a lot of watches from a lot of people. It's the ability for somebody to be part of this community and to be supported by the community. What watches are looking good right now? What do you look for in a watch? How do you buy one? And then actually buy one from a trusted source, a source that you've been able to spend time listening to and learning from and getting trust in. It's a little bit like when I bought that one from Eric Wind. I didn't know Eric Wind from Adam until you introduced me to him. But what's going to happen here is
he was on our show. I mean, not personally. We did a live stream. But that's the idea.
Yes.
This is
the circle is going to get even tighter because I wouldn't have to go to Eric Wind to buy. I could buy right from here. And what we do is be able to talk about watches in the inventory. And then you might be able to ask me. And here's a guy who has no vested interest in saying, okay, Baron Wolf, what would you buy out of this inventory? What looks appealing to you and why? And I would talk to you about mine. And then someone else who's maybe more into neo vintage, because I think the one thing we're also going to do is we're going to cross all areas. New,
yes,
recently purchased or recently a new old stock. That is something that's pre-owned, I should say. New, pre-owned, certified pre-owned. Perhaps there's a certification program that you get into. Neo vintage and then vintage, all of these. And then that allows folks to understand the different aspects of it and how they get started. So it's a community and e-commerce together.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, our official thing is basically we have a three-part, there's a 3 pillars, which is content, commerce, community. So again, we're going to be adding content. We're going to be bringing in some more people on the team. So there's going to be, I'm here temporarily. I want to bring in real professionals to do these things. We're going to create a lot of content, but the idea is we want to build a community around it, because ultimately, I want to see, the reason why we do like these interviews with collectors, like you, with like Ronnie, with these other guys who have these big collections, small collections, whatever, is this is how you really learn. I mean, I want to see in real life, there's a lot of these so-called experts in this watch. Everybody's an expert all of a sudden. I want to see I want to see a lot of stuff. I want to see how real experiences. And we want to create a platform also where people can, on our thing, they could also trade on our platform where they know, okay, it's legit. So yeah, we might sell some stuff directly. We could have auctions where we take in, consignments where people consign stuff on the thing. They know it's legit. It's part of a publicly traded company. It's not a guy in LA, who's, taking the money and buying Lambos and sushi, we won't mention any names. But are we
going to have some merchandise? Are we going to have merch? That's one of my key questions. Will we offer merch? And will we offer backpacks? Hey, there we go.
We're going to have
I worried about you last night.
The symbol is REGRF. REGRF, Uzi. REG is the American symbol.
Okay.
But Uzi, one of our members.
I watched the live stream last night, and you were playing with that chamber on your little toy there. I worried about you. So hopefully you're doing okay, and hopefully you bought the stock. I think Uzi's the one who's been bidding this up.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's actually there's a lot of action. I think. Okay, so
how much
are you a chart? By the way, are you a chart guy?
I'm not so much a chart. Certainly not like Uzi is. But I'm looking at the chart. What kind of volume are we seeing here? The volume.
Hang on a second. The U.S. volume.
You ought to be able to just roll over there.
Yeah.
And see.
I'm using Google Finance, the free thing here. So we got volume about 1 million. I think we're about 1 million shares, which is a decent amount.
On a daily basis.
So basically, Yeah, I mean, basically, well, I mean, listen, it's a penny stock. We're not talking big money here, but the deal basically, the deal was announced September 3rd. So the stock has basically doubled since the deal announcement. The volume has gone from 0 to, we're trading on average, about 1 million shares a day. On a good day, a couple million shares. And very few people know about the stock right now. So very few people know about it. We're going to start getting the word out. We got a bunch of news pipeline things. And, okay, so we got about 1 million shares. Now, one thing I would say, talking about deep value, right? So I'm going to bring up the chart because, I mean, my philosophy is
a market cap of what, about 3 million? Is that 3 million Canadian or 3 million? Go ahead.
3 million, exactly. So you basically bring up an excellent point. See, the market cap is the number one thing I look for. I don't want to. So I wrote the, my business was, essentially stock promotion for many years. We had a lot of stocks. The last couple of years, we've introduced like 12 stocks that increased between 1,000 and 5,000%, right? So my main channel is actually Wall Street Reporter. That's the main thing. So anyway, so I wrote this book. I haven't pull this back. 10-bagger blueprint, which you can get on Amazon. The reason I wrote this book is, we introduced a lot of stocks that they went up to the moon, right? People made 10 times their money, 20 times, 50 times their money, right? The problem is a lot of investors, they start chasing these stocks after they're already up 1,000%. And they think, oh my God, it went up it went up 10x. It's going to do 10x again. You know what the odds of that happening are? Yeah, well, the odds of that happening are like, look, I'm doing this almost 30 years. I've only had 3 stocks that increased 100x. And by the way, did I buy them? No. One of them was Taser, which is now Axon. That was like $1 stock in 2003. Today it's $387, right? But the odds of those things are it's like, and you know how many companies I've worked with? How many companies we've had on the Wall Street? 10,000 companies, literally 10,000 companies in easily 10,000 CEOs. So here's the thing. So the idea is, I wrote the book because, there is a system, there is a way you can find stocks and get in on the ground floor of stocks that go up, 10x or more. And that's what I look for when we bring on companies on the Wall Street Reporter program. Is I look for stocks where investors can get in on the ground floor of a stock that can go up 1,000% or more. They can make potentially 10 times the money, 20 times their money or more. And your risk is minimal. Your risk is,
I don't know.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear you. You just snapped, but you can hear me, right?
I can hear you, yeah.
And I can see you. So did you hit a button by any chance? Did you hit your mute by mistake?
It should be good. How about now?
We still can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Huh. Look and see if you hit the mute button at all.
No,
it's
going. Okay.
You can hear me. Right?
I hear you fine. Yeah.
Hey, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. So yeah, I think there's something on your end. So this is, and folks will just there we go.
Oh, we got a $4.99 super chat. We have the revenues. By the way, guys, I'm happy. I'm happy to announce.
Is the Uzi Luxury Watch channel? Yeah, we still can't hear you, Jack. Colonel.
So it might be on your end.
Again.
So we have listen, our revenues.
It's definitely working, but still nothing. Nothing.
You wanna
just look at your control panel and see if there's any chance the mute got hit, or did you possibly bring the volume down by mistake? See if you can bring your volume back up.
No. Everything. No. Everybody hears. Everybody's. Yeah.
Oh, you can hear. Oh,
yeah.
You can hear. Okay. Then it's me.
Your connection. I noticed your connection is breaking up a little bit.
Let me try.
You want to log out? You can log back in. You want to try that? Log out, log back in.
Echo cancellation, automatically adjust my default. Got that going. Microphone, speakers, test. No, okay. Let's see here. Let's try. No. No.
You know what? Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Okay.
Now I have.
You hear me?
I have something going. Yeah, now
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. So what I was saying is this, right? So the idea is, for the way to make money with these stocks, any penny stocks or whatever it is, you got to get in at the ground floor where it's basically you got to look at it as public venture capital where you have asymmetric, what I call asymmetric setup. Meaning you're not just buying a stock to double your money, because if you do that, you're going to lose money because there's such high risk involved. If you're buying these stocks, you need an asymmetric bet where it's like you're betting $1 to make $100, to make $500. You got to have a big payout to make up for the risks involved, right? So right now, the stock, you're coming in at it's 3.5 cents Canadian, right? So to your point, the valuation, the company has a market cap of about 2 million US, right? 2 million US dollars. Yeah, which is like free, basically. It's like, by the way, I'm embarrassed. I'm actually embarrassed to be talking about this because I've never. I mean, I think the number of times I've ever handled a penny stock, like something like 5 cents, is like it's disgusting. I feel like it's embarrassing. It's seriously. I mean, usually, okay, I understand like a stock is 50 cents, 30 cents, $1. That's okay. That's fine. I love those under $1. But to go below a dime is a little bit like, it's degrading, frankly. I feel dirty. But what's interesting is the last time I introduced a 5-cent stock, the last time we had a 5-cent stock, that symbol was CBDT, and that stock increased from 5 cents to $2.50. It went up 50 times. People made 50 times their money in 4 months. It's an outlier. That's not going to happen again. I mean, hopefully it does, but the odds of that happening are, I mean, it should have only increased 10x, but it was COVID, things got amplified. But that stock went from a nickel to 250. And guess what? The setup, I believe, is very, very similar. The only difference is I think we have a much more real business, and I think we have a better, management in place than the other guy. But that stock went to $2.50. And you know what's crazy? There were guys offering the CEO. They basically had some, nonsense COVID testing bullshit, whatever. There were guys offering him $50 million financing, like basically free money. Free money. He didn't return phone calls. This guy went like, bananas. And the stock, you know where that stock is today? Wolf, guess where that stock is today? It's delisted. It went from a nickel to 250. And by the way, we helped them get the stock moving, and our contract was up right around that time. And it was okay. Listen, I didn't want to renew because what else? How much more can we do for this guy? It's like I don't. And he went on to his other thing, and I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but that stock went to zero because bad decisions, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is this: the reason I wrote the book is there's a time to buy these stocks and a time to get out. You got to get in early and you got to get out. Don't be a greedy. Don't get out when you make whatever 10x, whatever. But the thing is this, right? So right now you're coming into this thing at a cheap ground floor valuation, $3 million. The question is, so you're not into charts. I'm a chart guy, but the question is, how do we make this stock, increase potentially 10x or more, right? Like, what's the upside? And I believe the upside is once we start, launch the e-commerce platform, monetize it, and there's different ways to do it. We could do it organically, which is the game plan to do it organically. But I'm also looking at potential acquisitions. There's a bunch of guys out there. They have a small setup. They're doing maybe 5 million, 20 million, whatever it is, which is not a lot of money in the watch business. It's very small. And, if we brought them in, we could get things going much quicker, right? Now, here's the crazy thing. This is the value. This is the investment thesis. The investment thesis is this. As a private company, these businesses have zero value. They have no enterprise value. They're worth the inventory. As a public company, though, if we can show that we go from zero revenue to $5 million, $10 million run rate, meaning that we start doing 200 grand a month, 500 grand a month, $1 million a month revenue, we can get, I believe, a valuation of 10x revenue, meaning that if we're doing, $10 million in sales, the stock would be worth 100 million. The market cap would be 100 million. So you divide by the number of shares out. There's 200 million, let's say. That becomes a 50-cent stock. So there is a path for this thing to go from 3 cents to 50 cents. There is a path. All we got to do, I believe, is execute. Get the e-commerce, and that's the thing. Everything else is bullshit. Like the content. What's going to matter is if we can generate revenue. Now we don't know. We don't know yet. We're going to launch the e-commerce. We don't know. In 30 days, in the next couple of weeks, who knows? We might get zero. We might get, who knows? But we know we have real buyers. We know we got real buyers in the audience. The question is how many of them will come to the platform.
Well, let's take a second on that. And I don't know how well you can hear me on this, but let's think about this, because what folks are doing is when you're buying the stock at a $2 million valuation, US $2 million valuation, $2 million US valuation, you're getting the Colonel as CEO. You're also getting the community, because you're getting Watch Reporter. You're getting the community both on Instagram. I think you said you're about 14,000 on Instagram, plus about 4,000 on Watch Reporter on YouTube.
Almost 3,000. Yeah. Plus email.
So, yeah. But think about that. So for somebody saying, well, what am I getting out of the gate? Even just today, you're getting a CEO who knows his business, who knows how to move
chairman.
stocks.
I'm the chairman of Dial Market, of news. I'm the chairman, but of the public company. I'm not the CEO, but the CEO of Dial Market. Yeah. Just we have to be very disclosure. We have to be very accurate when we talk. Just regulatory purposes.
Very, very fair. But I think that's important that folks know what they're getting right out of the gate. There's a lot of opportunity, but right out of the gate, they're getting you as chairman and they're getting the community, because it's my understanding that all of the intellectual property, you're bringing to that. You're bringing the community from Watch Reporter, both on Instagram and on YouTube, and that community is here on day one.
Yeah, no, that's the idea, right? So the idea is, look, I mean, I've helped, I'm doing the business, let's call it the word stock promotion, for 25 plus years. WallStreetReporter.com has been around since '97. We were the first guys doing CEO interviews online, streaming audio, all that stuff. The only mistake I made was I was basically trying to do what Mark Cuban did. I missed the boat. He was a little bit smarter. He sold his business for $2 billion. I'm still doing this. I'm still grinding it all these years later. But anyway, it was the same idea. He was doing sports. We were doing CEO interviews. But anyway, same thing, streaming audio back then. Anyway, so the idea is, this is the first time I'm actually running a public company. I've never done it before. I never really wanted to do it, but I see an incredible opportunity here. And the thing is, what I've learned is, I actually know that I have a system, literally, I have a system, and I tell this to clients, whatever it is. Yeah, I do have a system to make a stock go up potentially 10x or more. Potentially, again, if the right things are in place, if it's a legitimate business, if it's undervalued where we start from, if certain things are there, yeah, we can make it a 10x in a certain amount of time, right? There is a system for doing it. I talk about it in the book. And when I wrote the book, I thought to myself, you know what? What would it take to make a stock go up 100x?
Show the book again, please.
Oh yeah,
put the book up.
We're doing it. Shit, I should put you on payroll.
But this is where folks can understand.
Bag of blue. So it's an Amazon. It's an Amazon.
You're talking about somebody who's done this professionally for many years. That Taser story is a perfect example.
You want to hear something crazy? I'm embarrassed. Okay, so Taser. So we were doing this is right after 9/11, and I don't know if you remember. All of a sudden, the market loves these themes, right? So the big theme right around 2002 was these homeland security stocks, right? And I'm producing different conferences for investors, for institutions. We're doing our homeland security conference. And I think, how do we get involved? So we had Phil Smith, that's the son, that's the guy running it now, I think, and his father. His father was the chairman. And they had this company, Taser, the Taser, the guns that zap you. Now they do the body cams, the ones you see in all the cop shows. It's called Axon now, Axon. The body cam footage, anytime you see it, that's the guy, right? So I remember he comes on, and at that time, this is like 2003, his stock, he went public, a company called Paulson took him public, It was a micro cap firm, and the deal fell apart. It went from like 14, I think it went to like $1. It basically was a fallen angel IPO, right? Which is the type of companies that we work with. We work with companies that needed help building market support, right? So we bring him in. I think we were doing a video interview. I was like the first guy. First of all, we were doing audio, streaming audio before they had video on the internet. Before YouTube, it was audio in 1996. And then all of a sudden we started doing video. So we bring this guy to do a video interview with Phil Smith and his father. And I'm interviewing them. I forgot which was. I think this was at the what's the hotel on by Grand Central, which they're knocking down. The Grand Hyatt. Right. I think it was at the Grand Hyatt. So I'm in a room with him, and he's like my age. He's like, I think we're both like 30 at the time. But he's like a kid, right? And his father's sitting. I hate. By the way, I hate family business with the father, because the family dynamics, it's always fucking weird. Anyway, so I'm interviewing the son, right? The questions, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay. And then like he answers something, like I think it wasn't promotional enough. And the father he starts yelling at him. He starts yelling in front of me. I'm like, what? Like he starts going, no son of mine or whatever, say that. How you should be more like aggressive, like some crazy. I was like, I felt so bad for the guy because I felt so bad for this kid. And I thought the stock was like kind of like a Fugazi stock a little bit, like, Taser, okay, whatever, sure enough, this guy's like a billionaire now, the stock is $387. It took 20 years. It was a 20-year ride with ups and downs. It was a roller coaster because right away it went from $1, it went to like $10 in the first like few years. It became a 10x. And then it collapsed. Whatever. By the way, let me just say, we did a very small thing with them. We weren't doing like big marketing campaigns like we were doing in the last couple of years. So I'm not taking credit at all but we did introduce a lot of stocks like that, like MicroStrategy, like this guy, the MicroStrategy guy. What's his name?
He's I don't remember his name offhand, but he's famous.
Michael Saylor, his stock went up 100x. We also had Rick's Cabaret, which was, you heard of Rick's Cabaret, Rick RCA. So Rick's Cabaret was basically a guy, I remember when he went public, it was a mob-related firm. Literally, I think it was the Gambino family ran, it was a company called Barron and Company, but not the, it was called A.R. Barron, I think that was the name. It was literally, the mob was controlling the firm. They took him public because what this guy was doing, he was going to consolidate strip clubs, gentlemen's clubs. He was going to consolidate gentlemen's clubs nationwide. Everybody thought it was a scam. Everybody thought it was like the mob was involved, and they weren't. It was a legitimate business. The stock was 50 cents. Nobody believed it. And I think recently it was $90. It went up 100x almost. It took a while. I think it pulled back. It's $40 now. But so we've had 100 baggers, we've had massive wins. The key is you got to get in. You got to get in when it's ugly. You got to buy ugly, sell pretty. You got to get in. Again, I'm not giving advice, not investment advice, but it's just like watches. You got to get into these things at the beginning of the trend when nobody wants it. Like right now, personally, again, I think the Rolex, the day date, the vintage day dates, great value. The Vacheron, like you have, great value. I was talking about the Patek Philippe Ellipse for the last year plus. Everybody was laughing. The Archie luggage, all these guys. Oh, it's a ladies' watch. Oh, it's small. Oh, it's small. Oh, it's old. The Patek Philippe Ellipse is like one of the hottest watches now. Prices, we had an auction, price just doubled. The AP Cobra has increased from $8,000 to $25,000 in the last year, which is one of the ugliest watches, by the way. But that's an example of it. You got to buy when they're ugly. You got to buy ugly, sell pretty. Stock's the same way.
The other saying is, it's like that Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player. You have to go to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. So guys,
hold on, Wolf. Let me interrupt you. By the way, that's one of I talk about that in the book, the Wayne Gretzky quote, because that's exactly it. It's like because actually they asked him, because I remember, because I talk about this all the time with these companies. Everybody always chases. Everybody's chasing the puck. Everybody's chasing after something is already up 1,000%. So Wayne Gretzky, they asked him, how did you become the world's greatest player? He said, I go to where the puck is heading. I go to where the puck is heading. I don't chase. after the puck.
Watch investors. Just a couple of quick points here. Watch investors need to know that things go in cycles. So those 43 millimeter hockey pucks that you were wearing on your wrist, you know what? The guys, you're getting too old for that stuff. I've got a 7.25-inch wrist, and this I'm wearing, that's a 35 millimeter on my wrist. It looks just fine. Look, everyone's got their thing, but you know what? I get a lot more looks on this than I do on some big watch that I used to wear. Because what I did is I looked like a fugazi. I looked like a guy who, it was just bought the cheapest thing. It doesn't. There's no class. So today, things go in cycles, is what I'm trying to say, and that's where you go to the Wayne Gretzky quote. And this is what we can do here, because we can all talk about what's important to us, and then you can say this guy's completely full of it. Actually, because look, in 5 years, those 43 millimeters are going to be back, because you're never going to see me buy one because I don't like them. But then, but it's all in a cycle, right? So a guy listening to me now is going to put himself a reminder for 5 years from now to start buying those 43 millimeter ones, because no one's going to be buying them except that guy's going to be out of hand.
I don't think it's 5 years. It might be like 15. It might be a while. It might be a while. These cycles. Here's the problem with the cycles. The problem with these cycles is they're like long. They're like 20 years plus. So like once these things go out of favor, it's 20 years. So like the stuff that's coming back now, the two tones, I think we're good for like a 5-7. We're like good for a 5 year. I don't know where the world is going to be in 5 years. I can't tell you. I do believe that like certain watches, like the Patek Ellipse, the small dress watches, those things are increasing. And again, I was talking about this for last year, and nobody was believing all these channels. Oh no, you gotta have a 40 millimeter. Oh, it's gotta be at least 40 millimeter. Oh, it's gotta be a Submariner. And now you see what these guys are saying. Like the Rob Report, they're all saying, oh, where the trend is going is smaller watches, two-tone, the Patek Ellipse, shaped cases, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
everybody thought you had to have a sport watch because it was rough and tumble, but yet this is as rough and tumble. If Red Adair can wear this while he's putting out fires, this is just as rough and tumble. So don't forget that. That might not be the case with every dress watch, but with this one it is. So it's something to think about. Believe it or not, I've actually been looking at the Frank Muellers, and I never thought I would look at a Frank Mueller, but some of those are starting to get. The prices are low. There are a few others that were really hot, say 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And there's another brand that's escaping me at the moment, like Jay-Z and some of these guys before he went to, would wear some of these. And that's, what the heck is the name? It'll come back to me. But Frank
Mueller, I don't even know. But Frank, actually, the early ones, the early 90s, right when the company, before they went like crazy and he went crazy doing drugs and all that, the early years, the early 90s is actually the ones that have like the guilloche, the hand. Those are actually increasing. They're starting to increase. A lot of the smart money is buying those watches. The smart collectors, guys like Phil Toledano who've reviewed his collections. Those guys are actually the Italians who are usually way ahead of everybody. They're buying early 90s Frank Mueller watches. So I think that's actually, and they're bigger actually. They're bigger watches. So you could wear.
They are bigger watches.
The money
so for somebody, some of those tank watches that I periodically I look at some of the tank watches, and I just don't. I need something a little bit bigger. That actually was what drew me to the Frank Muellers. The other one right now, I'm starting to look at the Jacobs & Co. Remember the Jacobs & Co. That's the one I was just thinking of. There are a couple. I don't know how to wear them, but it's very funny because I actually showed one to my wife online, and she said, "You know what? That's actually not as crazy as I thought it would be." No. You have to be very careful. But I'm for an old fart like me to be looking at a Jacobs. It's interesting.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. His watch. Those early, like, was it early 2000? The ones that you mentioned, the Jay-Z, I think it's called a 5 time zone watch or whatever, which is like quartz or whatever. It's basically a garbage watch, and the prices collapsed because everybody. But now all of a sudden, it's actually people are because they're so cheap, and people are like, oh, this is kind of fun, or this or that. It's so like it's so out of like whatever. And it's actually, people are getting into those because also Jacob is, he's selling like watches, these $1 million watches, so it adds to the whole aura of the brand a little bit. But that's not a serious watch. It's like a high speculation. It's a penny stock.
Totally speculative. But I'm trying to say that's where, again, in that look where the puck is going, not where it's been. Maybe it's stuff like that. So let's get back. Hey, nobody's okay. So, but yeah, look, I'm excited. I think I told you I've got that on my list to. I plan to put in a purchase order. But as you said the other night, people have to be careful. Don't go just bidding this thing up. Don't put market orders in. Be careful as you're placing your order because you don't want to be chasing this. You want to be careful like you do with anything. I only ever put in limit orders. I'm an options guy. I don't really do stocks. I don't really do, as Uzi does, palladium, apparently. I'd love to learn a little more about him actually in the future again. But right now I worry about that chamber that he was playing with last night. And hopefully he's okay. That was a little nerve-wracking to listen to him play with that chamber. But in any case, limit orders. But I think the value proposition is clear.
Yeah, so I think, basically, the stock, the main market for the stock is in Canada, the CSE, which news, that's the symbol there. The U.S. side, so actually here's the opportunity. Here's kind of the arbitrage opportunity, if you will, is that, right now the stock is not liquid in the U.S. because the company has to update some filings. They got to do like it's called the 15C211 filing. They got to file basically a bunch of paperwork, which is going to take like 30 days. And then it's going to be much more accessible. So right now, the U.S. trading has like a very big bid-ask spread. It's like not liquid. The CSE is no problem. On the Frankfurt is no problem. So I think, right now, 90% of the U.S. audience really can't buy the stock because it's hard to buy it. But I think once we do the filing and it's going to be easy to buy it, the stock could be a lot higher because everybody can buy it. You got to basically get in when it's hard to get in or nobody knows about it. Once everybody knows about it, then it could be higher. So, again, I'm not investment advice. We're not here to give, buy sell recommendations. It's issuer sponsored content, no forward-looking statement, all that stuff, all the disclaimers. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell. I'm going to give you the whole.
This is exactly
what I did. It can go to zero.
As much as I say, the only equities I do are shipping equities, and I basically buy them in Norway on the Oslo exchange prior to them getting listed in the U.S. for exactly that reason. So I arbitrage two things. One is the Norwegian krone against the dollar, and then I arbitrage the exposure to the U.S. market. So, this is to some extent where I've made my money. That and options trading, I do those two things. But those are my wheelhouses. So I know exactly that. I think I told you the other day, I buy periodically on the Frankfurt Exchange, so I'm well aware of the Frankfurt Exchange. But that's what I do is I buy on foreign exchanges prior to listings in the U.S. But I do it.
Okay. So because you mentioned
stocks, that's what I know.
Okay, shipping stock. Okay, it's interesting. Why shipping stocks? I don't know, but that's an interesting. You know about shipping? Is that like a
business? I went down that rabbit hole very deeply. So that's a business that I know, and I specifically oil tankers. They're called product and dirty, LNG, propane. Though I really don't do container ships. I don't really do car carriers. There are a lot of niches in this space. There's there's also something called dry cargo, which is where where coal gets shipped. That's where grains get shipped. I do a little bit with that, but my main one is shipping energy. So that's what I do. But then a lot of that is connected with moving. There's a lot of these go public in Norway and then shift to the U.S. And that's I have a long history in other areas, but that's where I currently spend my time.
Okay. No, but that's so. Yes, that's the arbitrage opportunity, right? Most Americans and Americans America is where the money is. That's the main market all over the world, really, pretty much, right? So until something is trading in the U.S., it's going to be cheap. Once something is accessible to the Americans, all of a sudden you have more potential buyers. It's just like what happened with watches. Why did the watch prices explode during COVID all of a sudden? Because everybody was chasing. All of a sudden, everybody had money to spend. Everybody was, so I think with this stock, once it's going to be more available in the U.S., once it becomes liquid, you're going to have a lot more potential buyers. So that's going to bring in a whole wave of buyers. Again, it's not a recommendation. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying whatever.
Right.
I'm saying once we get this filing, all we got to do is just basically it's just a matter of paperwork. So we got the lawyers working on all that stuff, but it's going to take 30 days. It could take 60 days. I don't know. It could be 2 weeks. Who knows? It's like you got to do the filings. But once that happens, all of a sudden, then you can have a more liquid market, and again, it becomes more accessible. And it's like that arbitrage opportunity you mentioned. So and we've had that happen many times. So a lot of our clients were Canadian companies, and I would tell people, hey, you got to get in. You got to buy one on Canada before the Americans get in, because once the Americans can buy, that's going to bring in also massive buying. So you want to get in before that. And anyway, that's the what do you call it? So Wolf, let's should I talk about the charts? I'm going to bring up the charts because I'm a chart guy. I want to charts. And Uzi's a chart guy. So
Uzi's a chart guy, and Uzi likes those lines. And I don't know if he trades palladium that way. It sounds like Uzi's a palladium trader.
Yeah,
the way I am a shipping stock and options guy. But interesting guy. I'd love to learn more about the guy. I just want to be careful.
No, we got to get him back. But the idea. Oh, hang on. Oh, where's my? Hang on. Where is? Okay.
What kind of volume are we seeing today? Do you have today's?
What are we at? We're at. It's not a lot. It's like a little over a million shares. Not big. Okay. It's not big. So here's the thing. So one of the things I look for, frankly, even before I take, and this is one of the secrets I tell people, the reason why, we've had so many winning stocks that went up, 10x, 20x, 50x or more, is the first thing I do when I look at a company, I listen to the story, whatever. The first thing I look at is the chart, because I'm a chart guy, because I believe the chart really, the technical picture kind of tells you what the possibilities are. It tells you kind of the truth in advance. And one of my theories, which is crazy, and I write about it in the book, and I have in my book a whole chapter, on technical analysis on how to read charts, moving averages, all that. My theory is that stocks like to go back to old highs, right? Meaning, for whatever reason, it's not scientific. It's just a superstition. People say, whatever. A lot of traders, old-time traders, talk about this. Now, this stock, if you look at this chart, the previous high on the chart was $5 a share. Now, am I saying it's going to go to $5 a share? I'm not. What I'm saying is, stocks do like to go back to old highs. It doesn't mean it's not scientific, nothing. But we do have a path for this thing to be, look, could it be a $2 stock? Yeah, sure. If we do, 100 million in revenues, 10x multiple, $1 billion valuation, you divide by, 250 million shares by then, maybe, that's going to be, $4 or $5 a share, potentially, if we hit that. And by the way, there's a lot of morons. There's a lot of these guys who are doing the Richard Mills and whatever. There's a couple of guys who are doing 100 million plus, and these guys are retards. I mean, you see these guys on you can see these guys on the YouTube channels. They're not PhD. They're not PhD guys. I mean, they're basically like a step above.
Yeah.
They're
Colonel,
basically.
Can I just ask you a little? Do you know anything about the existing shareholders? At one point, has there been a lot of turnover? Do we know anything about the existing shareholders? Are these guys ready to? Do we know anything about their interest? Or is it time for a new set of shareholders to really who really understand the new business?
I think so, yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. You bring up a good point. I want to let's talk about that. I want to finish off on the chart topic. But what I'm looking at here is, for anybody that's a chart guy, is, one of the things I look for is, again, I look for an asymmetric bet. I look for a setup where, you have everything is, the odds got to be stacked up in your favor. The odds have to be in your favor. That means You got to get it at the ground floor. You got to get it at a cheap valuation. Here we got a cheap valuation of $2-3 million, which is dirt cheap. We have catalysts. We have multiple catalysts in place to increase that. And I want a chart. I want to get in as a stock is coming out of a double bottom. I love this type of double bottom formation. I talked about it in the book, why it's so bullish, and especially when it's backed up.
Double bottoms are the only chart that I look at. I look for double bottoms because I'm a value guy. Me too. So we got a double bottom here, right? And it's breaking out of the 50 and the 200-day moving average. And again, charts, people can have different opinions on charts. I could say it's a double bottom. You could say maybe it's not. But one thing is 100% science that is totally objective, and that is the moving averages. Because that's trend following, and all the big hedge funds, that's really how these guys make money. They're just trend followers. They use algorithms. Once something breaks out of a moving average, they go in. That when it breaks down, they go out. That's how all these guys make billions of dollars. That's how, like, Renaissance Capital, that's the Turtles guy. Again, so this stock right now is flashing buy signals because we broke out of the 50 and the 200-day moving average. And the last time it happened was back in March. The stock went from 2 cents to 12 cents in 3 days. From 2 cents to 12 cents, right? And it also went from back then from, I don't know, 16 cents to $5 back, from 16 cents, according to the chart. I wasn't involved. I don't know what happened. It went from 16 cents to $5 in 4 months. Can we go to the last 2 years? Really, that's where I think the story can a lot of that. But there's a great story that you just told, and I just really want to spend time looking at that, because if you think about that, even right here, as you said, there's a breakout. Look, it was trading below 3 for that long period of time, and what you're seeing is a breakout. That was a long trend.
Yeah. No. So right now, the thing is breaking out. Also on the weekly. Actually, I'll pull up the weekly chart. But so you got technical buy signals. We got volume coming in, and again, we're very early. We haven't really told anybody about this. Like, look, the company's been basically publicly traded for a month since September 3rd, and I haven't even mentioned it on our. I haven't mentioned it to anybody on the Watch Reporter channel. I haven't talked about it on the email list. I didn't tell anybody on the platform until Sunday night, because I figured, you know what? Look, I don't want people to tell me, if the thing goes to $1, I don't want people to say, hey, how come you didn't tell us? We were with you in the beginning, all that stuff, So, again, I'm not saying it's going to $1. I'm not saying it's going to whatever, but I'm saying, look, if the thing explodes all of a sudden, I don't want people, who are, essentially very important people in the audience. I don't want them telling me, hey, how come you didn't tell us when, all this, when you were public and the stock is $1, we could have made money, blah, blah, blah. And the audience is really responsible for all the success. I mean, without the audience, without the community, there's nothing here. I mean, right? So, I figured I'll tell people.
Absolutely. And Colonel is the, so there, when you talk about it, there was a $5 stock. That was operating as a different kind of a company. They totally
completely. Yeah. So here's what's interesting. So here's why the stock is a great opportunity, I believe. And I'll be very candid with you, right? So the great opportunity is, again, you got to buy ugly, sell pretty. So this thing, if you look at the charts, I mean, it's had quite a roller coaster over the years. And this is like one of these typical. Look, I'm not gonna be diplomatic about it. I'll just say, this was basically like a Fugazi type of stock. I mean, it's one of these, like, it's a company based in Canada. I don't call it Vancouver. I call it Scamcouver, right? So you get a lot of these grifter scam artists in Canada, which is like, that's the biggest export of scam stocks, and fake it till you make it companies or whatever. And this thing they got like they were doing first crypto, then this. COVID, these companies, these Canadian companies, even the U.S. companies, what they do is they come up with a new story every time. They say, "Oh, first we're doing cannabis, then we're doing plant-based foods, then we're doing crypto." I mean, it's a bunch of bullshit, right? So a lot of people have gotten burned. Most of the people, and this is you were asking, who are the shareholders? The people in the stock right now are mostly bag holders, right? It's the people who bought the stock. And by the way, most of them have been selling in the last month, have been getting out because a lot of them, this was their, a lot of, you see what happened was the reason why the stock is, 3 cents, 3.5 cents, and not 10 cents, I believe, is because what happened is a lot of these guys who have been in the stock for years, who got buried, I mean, they're underwater like 99%. They call them bag holders. So the stock has been dead. It's been trading below like at a penny for the last 6 months. All of a sudden it wakes up, once this deal is announced, it wakes up, it doubles. It basically doubles overnight. I mean, it's doubled over the last, right away it doubled. And they see this volume. They see all of a sudden they figure, hey, we can get out. We can get out. Just take the money and run. Just take the money and run. Right. They're just desperate to get out, which I understand. I understand that. I don't blame them. I've been in that situation where, I'm like just pissed off about, with some company. And I'm like, shit, I can get out. Let me get out. So what's happened is we have buying coming in, but we had a lot of those guys have been selling in the last month. So you see a lot of volume came in, but the stock is not going anywhere. It's in a pattern because a lot of those guys have, so they've been selling into it. And most of them, I believe a lot of them are done. A lot of them are out by now. So now we're ready for kind of a new people to come in. And I believe they're coming in at the ground floor. Again, my opinion, not saying that's not the company saying that, whatever. Just I'm saying I think we're at the ground floor.
That's very helpful though. That's very, very helpful because you do that has an influence there. And maybe that's also provides an opportunity because these guys, all of a sudden, they're seeing an opportunity to sell because they're thinking about the past. They don't know Watch Reporter. They don't know the market.
I don't know anything. No, Baron, this is a very important topic. Here's the thing. Again, I always say buy ugly, sell pretty. So right now, most of the shareholders, they have like 4,000 shareholders. I would say 99% of them don't really know. They don't really care. A lot of the new people, they don't know. They don't really. I would say 90%, 99% of the market is not aware of what we're doing, even though we've had press releases, a couple of press releases. And by the way, I got to say something. The company's trading in Canada, right? Canada's a socialist country. It's a communist country, basically. It's a nanny state. And these exchanges are very heavily regulated, right? Every time we put out a press release in the U.S., it's a free country. We get a free country in the U.S. I put out a press release, no problem. In Canada, I got to send it to the regulators. You got these people who don't know anything. They review it. They say, well, why did you say this? And how come you mention Rolex? Why do you mention, are you trying to, no, that's our business. That's our business. If I was in the uranium mining business, I would say we're a uranium miner. We're in the business of the secondary market. This is what we're doing. This is the audience we have. They're interested in Rolex. Rolex is 90% of the market. Yes, I'm sorry. Rolex, it's not my fault that Rolex is associated with again, we're not affiliated with Rolex. We're not a Rolex dealer or whatever. But that is 90% of the interest of our audience. Patek Philippe, exactly, yeah. It's 90% of the market. So we mentioned Rolex, we mentioned Patek Philippe, and I mentioned the people who are involved in the space because investors need to make informed decisions. They need to know where the puck is heading. And by the way, these Canadian regulators, they're doing people a disservice. They try with all those good intentions. They're actually doing a big disservice because the more information there is, the better it is for the market. And so every press release we have, these guys censor it. We got to tone it down. We got to make it sound like we're going out of business almost because. If a company is going out of business, you're never going to hear from these guys, the regulators. If a company is attacked by shorts, you're never going to hear from these guys. They love to see stocks collapse. They hate to see, in my opinion, I think the Canadian regulators hate to see stocks going up. It makes them crazy because they're Marxists. But anyway, enough with that. They're probably going to shut me down now. They're probably going to ban me. But the point is this, right? The point is nobody knows about the stock right now. And we had some news coming out. We're going to have more news. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people think it's a scam. A lot of investors, they think it's a penny stock. They're saying, oh, it's a scam stock. Oh, this guy is a fugazi. And this guy saying, oh, this guy, Jack Marks, oh, he's a scam artist. Oh, his stocks are trading at zero, blah, blah. You know what? Yeah, we have stocks that are trading at zero, but they don't tell you that before they went to zero. When we introduced them, they went from a nickel to $2.50 or from 17 cents to $3 or from, 50 cents. I've never had I've never had a stock go down on my watch. In other words, when we introduce a company and, you know, they're still on our program, they're paying us for the market pro. We've never had a company go down during that time. They may have, you know, kind of stayed even. No. And people have said, does the program really work? Maybe you just got lucky. You're taking credit for, you know, the market. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to see proof if I got lucky with the market? Look where the stocks are when, you know, where I'm involved in them, when I'm promoting them on Wall Street Reporter. They're going up. They're going up. And look where they are when they're no longer on a Wall Street Reporter and some other, you know, promoter, or they're using somebody else or whatever. You see those stocks going down. But anyway, all the stocks we've introduced, the dozen that increased 1,000% to 5,000%. We've had countless stocks that doubled or tripled. Now, I never tell people when to sell. That's not my business. I don't tell people to buy, and I don't tell them when to sell. When people buy and when they sell is their own business, right? And by the way, that's the reason I wrote the book. The reason I wrote 10-Bagger Blueprint is so that investors can make informed decisions, so they can learn and understand how to put the odds in your favor. Because I guarantee you that if this stock explodes, let's say it goes from 2 cents, it goes to $1 or whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to crash at some point. It might go from $1 back to 25 cents. I'm sure it could happen. I'm not saying it's going to go to $1. I'm not saying it's no, no, no. But these things are a roller coaster, and you got to know when to get in and when to get out. That means knowing how to read the charts, knowing about valuation, knowing about news flow, knowing about catalysts, and those are the things I talk about in the book. The reason I spend time doing this, which is I hate writing. This took like 6 months. I mean, the reason I wrote the book is I want my audience to be informed, to be able to make informed decisions so that they know when to get in, when to get out. So they know when they're looking at this, okay, here's when you get in. And by the way, okay, here's when you take a profit. Here's when you take money off the table. And everybody should take money off the table after a stock increases a certain amount. And again, I talk about it in the book. I'm not going to give it away here. People should buy the book on Amazon.
They should. I'm going to be. I've got it on my list.
By the way, we're not paying, right? You're not a paid shill. We're not paying it. This is just to be clear.
Not a paid shill. Oh, but I just saw a comment about the 36 millimeter. And by the way, that's one more thing I want to talk to Uzi about, because I'm a 36 millimeter guy. I've got a 7¼ inch wrist. And you know what? 36 millimeter is just fine. I don't need a 40. In fact, I backed away from I sold all my 40, 41s, 42s, and I sport a 36, and I get more looks on this watch and my 34s and my 35s than any 40 that I ever wore. So by
the way, this guy, Memo Box, saying charts don't repeat, they run, which is true. This is what I'm saying. I believe we have a setup right now for this thing. I think we got a path. Look, I think the stock is breaking out here. If we break 4 cents, it can go to 6 cents and then double from there. I believe, in my opinion, again, not saying it, that's where the resistance on the chart, the next resistance line is 12 cents and then around the 25-cent level. Again, not saying it's going there, whatever. But this guy's asking about Uzi's watch. So Uzi's watch, he's got actually a factory. That's a factory diamond bezel and factory, the whole thing. Actually, it's a desirable watch. That it's worth more money as. No, you don't want to swap anything out. But again, I've given him a lot of crap because I hate diamond bezels. I think it looks kind of feminine. Hey,
go with the bark bezel. Come on, guys. This is the bezel to have. PM vintage may be, well, it could be. It definitely is vintage. I'll go with gold and silver maybe, but I won't go with crypto. That's a whole nother discussion. But this is not only a good investment, but a lot of fun to wear these and to be in the business and to know what you're looking at, to investigate it.
By the way, can I ask how much did you pay? What'd you pay for that, if you don't mind sharing?
$7,000.
That's the bottom of the market.
It was the bottom of the market. I think the other part is the only reason I think I got it for $7,000 is it was a fast decision. I think Eric doesn't like to do business with watches less than 10,000, and then it does. Yeah, he's high end customer. So yeah, there's a little blemish on the back. here.
Yeah, no, the blemish doesn't matter. Who cares about the blemish?
Doesn't matter to me.
It's a watch you wear. Doesn't matter. But here's the thing. So this watch, right? So right now the Rolex date, and again, we're not here. I don't have any inventory of date. I probably would have
with the bark bezel.
But here's the thing. So right now, $7,000.
$7 grand. $7,000, and that's why I can afford to invest in a quality dial to replace this champagne one. This champagne one will be available for sale. All kidding aside, I'll probably just hang on to it. But because I bought this at such a good price, I can afford to pay money for a quality dial. So this is also a 78. This is the 1500 series movement. It's not the 3500. So this is the non-quick. Is yours also the non-quick?
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the it's a pain in the ass to set. That's the problem.
It's not a pain in the ass if you wear it enough.
Right.
You just have to wear it a little bit every day. And so what I do is I usually switch between 3 and 4 watches a day. It drives my wife crazy, but I work out of my house. So I keep this thing moving by wearing it for an hour a day, and then I move on to some of my others. And that's either here or as I'm out and about. And I probably switch watches 2, 3, 4 times a day.
No, I think like right now, look, $7,000 is a bargain. That's definitely the lowest price out there. And right, so imagine this: for $7,000, you're getting a full gold Rolex date. I mean, that's an icon. That's the icon, right? And the great thing about this watch, the best thing about it, again, is what I find is that it's very versatile. You can wear it as a sports watch. You put on a rubber strap. You put on a leather. It's a classic. It's the real deal. It's the real deal. It's a full gold watch. It's the president's watch, right? And it's not going to go lower. I can't say we don't guarantee buy. So we don't. I'm making this guarantee. I'm willing to make a guarantee that we will never see Rolex date sell below 65. Well, actually, I would say 7,000. I would even say right now this is the floor, like in terms of the market, because first of all, gold is going up. There's going to be a massive number of people. By the way, have we even talked about the Indians who are going to be coming in? There's 1.5 billion Indians, right? China was the big driver for watches 10 years ago. China, because all of a sudden the Chinese started making money. What do people do when they make money? They buy watches, right? What is the first thing a guy does when he buys a watch? He buys a Rolex Submariner, right? Whatever it is. That's the first, a two-tone Submariner, the Bluesy. And the Chinese who drove the market. The same thing is happening with India. There's a mass, you got 1.5 billion Indians. They're all young, not like China. And there's a massive booming middle class. They love gold. They love gold. They don't want steel. We had an Indian guy, or actually it was Pakistani. Same thing, Indian, same. They don't want to say, but it's the same thing, right? So this guy, he's a date guy. He's actually a big date guy forever. And this guy is saying, oh, in my country, we don't look at steel, only gold. I don't want to be involved with steel. It looks like it's dirty, whatever. Gold, only gold. And he's like into like gem set, the whole thing. But only day dates. He's always had day dates for 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is. He just, and when the Indians start buying day dates, the market's going to double, okay? Because think about it. There's 1 billion Indians. How many of them will have money? Not 1 billion. You're going to have 1%, which is 15 million, okay? Which actually is more. Let's say you have 10 million people. Half of them are men. By the way, women can wear this. That's the other thing. Women, I see a lot of women, who have style. They wear a day date on a bracelet because it's a little flashier on a bracelet.
Right.
You could wear on a strap. Right. It's like a thing, right?
Wear stuff on a bracelet. So
yeah, it's a thing. So it's a whole thing. And you have 10 million Indians start buying Rolex day dates. Not even 10 million. Let's say 1,000 of them enter the market. Let's say 2,000, which is like tiny bit, right?
Yeah. The
price is going to go to the moon because they made a ton of these. They made a ton of these, but they didn't make that many. And they're not. So you're going to have prices. I believe prices are going to explode. Whether it happens next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. I'm very bullish on India. And if you want a pure play in India, gold watches, gold Rolex,
Gold watches
specifically.
I'll tell you a quick anecdote. So I've been selling a lot of shitter watches that I've had in my collection. I've probably sold 20 to 25 in the last year. And I live in a small town.
Hold on, Baron. This, the Indian wedding season does affect gold prices, right? So imagine that. Imagine nobody's talking about the Indians affecting Rolex. The Indians will. I guarantee you this. I guarantee you, the Indians will be the driving force in the watch market in the next couple of years. I don't know if it happens 2 years from now, 5 years from now, but they're going to be the driving force like China was 5 years ago.
I've taken 20 watches for sale that I've shipped out of my local post office. The only one that an Indian woman runs our post office, the only one she's ever expressed real interest in is this one. She said, "I like that watch."
There you go.
and she's Indian. It was so funny because she's seen. I basically take all my watches and I package them up right there at the post office, partially for security and show people. There's the only one of probably 25 that she's had any interest in. She said, "I like that watch."
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
No, so there's a lot of, so I think there's a lot of things happen. I think there's a lot of specifically for Rolex, for the watch market. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of things lining up. The stars are aligning, right? Like, you got a lot of new people coming into the market. There's opportunities in vintage in different areas. We're talking about vintage today. And look, the reason why I took this company public was I think again, I look at themes. One of the things I talk about in my book is, you want a stock that's part of a hot theme, and you're the only game in town where there's like a monopoly, right? Remember when the COVID stocks exploded? When there was only a few of them, or like the AI. Whenever you only have a few stocks in that theme, they do very well. This stock is the only game in town. So when all of a sudden people realize, oh, this is an opportunity, this is going to be the only game in town. Watches of Switzerland, I know they're public on the UK market. They're like a retailer. They're a jewelry retailer, whatever. Brick and mortar. I don't really count them. So this is the only game in town, really. This is the only game in town, and it's a 3-cent stock.
I just wanted to bring that out there. But what it does is show the opportunity to some extent. We're talking over $1 billion market cap. I'm sorry, over £1 billion market cap. So $1.5 billion market cap ish. I don't know my exchange rate exactly, but I think it's about $1.5 billion. So there's somebody who's in the watch space, totally different, no community aspect to it, none of that collector taking advantage of the collector and building a community of collectors, which is what a watch reporter is looking to do and has already done. It's now a matter of monetizing that. Yeah, so this is the next. This is going to be the e-commerce thing. So by the way, and we're going to have announcements, I think maybe this week related to that. But speaking of new collectors, speaking of India, I think we mentioned this. So Mark Zuckerberg, who he really has terrible taste, honestly. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. So all of a sudden, everybody on Instagram, they're saying, all of a sudden, this guy in the last month, he all of a sudden he bought like 5. Heavy hitter watches. I mean, they're actually, I don't really like them, but, so there's big articles all of a sudden. Like this is the new Zuckerberg thing. Hang on a second. What is it? Hang on a second. Good. God bless him. I happen personally to be a vintage guy and a semi-vintage guy, or neo-vintage. And that's where I think the puck is going.
It is. No, Zuck, listen. No, Zuck has no taste. He doesn't know what he's basically. He's basically buying, like, I think somebody's just like pawning off stuff on him, which is like unsellable. Like, his Patek Perpetual is like the one that nobody wants. His Debut, it's stuff that nobody really wants. Like this F. Vacheron is kind of like, it's a hot brand, but it's like, I wouldn't want this. But the point is that. But here's the thing. The reason I bring it up is this is a guy who's a tech guy, he's very representative of the tech audience. And these guys never would have been buying like really watches. They all follow him. You know, he's a trendsetter for the watch people. I mean, not he's a trendsetter for the tech industry. You know, when did all these guys start dressing like slobs with the t-shirts and the flip-flops? When he did it. When Zuckerberg started wearing the t-shirts, they all started wearing the t-shirts and hoodies. Just like Steve Jobs started wearing the turtleneck, they all copied him. Right. So now all these guys, all these tech bros who have a lot of money, by the way, there's a lot of these guys who, a lot of like guys who are like 25, whatever, they're making like, you know, I mean, millions of dollars from, I mean, like literally some of these guys have made like, I'm talking about a lot of people. I'm not talking about like a few guys. I'm talking about there's a ton of people who are sitting on, I'm talking about guys who are like 30 years old, 25, 30, who are sitting on, you know, 10, $25 million, like you don't hear about whatever. And like, and they're like still, but those guys, now that they see it's okay, they see Zuckerberg as an example, they see he's saying it's okay to wear a watch, they're going to all of a sudden start buying. And guess what? I was driving up north in Silicon Valley on the 101 a few months ago. I see a giant billboard for MB&F watches. You know, if you drive on the 101 in Silicon Valley, you see all these billboards for AI, for biotech. It's all the billboards are tech related. And I see a billboard for MB&F. They're showing MB, by the way, which is very like that's a really out of the, that's not a Rolex, okay? It's not. It's MB&F is very like specific, $100,000 watch. You know, weird, specific. These tech guys are going to start coming into the market. The market's going to explode, I believe, in my opinion. There's going to be a lot of attention, and the only pure play stock is this REGRF.
These are the guys. Think about it. These tech guys, what are their alternatives? This is something they can enjoy. They can get into easily. They don't have to store a car. They don't have to worry about, you know, the car. These are easy to store, easy to maintain, easy to access, and you can have a lot of fun with it. And there's a big community around all of this. And these folks, they'll maybe start with the MD&F and the FP Journes, but then they're going to be interested in other ones. And they're going to say, hey, this is, for me, a hobby. It's a hobby I can enjoy, that I can spend time on, but it doesn't suck up all my time like, I don't know, racing cars might. This is why this is much more, it's much more universal. It's, and
you know what? The other thing is the technical aspect. You know, a lot of these guys, they're kind of engineering type or whatever it is. They might be into cars, they might be into like whatever, but they're engineering mindset. So they like the idea of, mechanical stuff, which is also, you got to realize people need contrast in their life. If all day long you're sitting in front of a screen, your whole world is virtual. All your friends are virtual friends. Everything is virtual. Everything is digital. You want to have something tangible, something real, and you don't want to be a slave to the matrix wearing an Apple Watch. I mean, only slaves wear the Apple Watch. I mean, you got to unplug and wear a solid gold Rolex day date or whatever it is. And what these guys these guys are going to come into the market, and they might start off with one, and all of a sudden, a guy who starts like Zuckerberg, whatever, he might start with an MB&F or FP Journe, and all of a sudden, he goes into 1950s Vacheron or 60s Rolex. People are going like wide now. That's the opportunity in the market, because in the last couple of years, people are focused on just like, brand new, this, blah, blah, blah. They were very, very niche. Now you got a lot of new people. They start off with one thing. Like, you're an example. I'm an example. I mean, I don't know. My first watch, the real first watch, was Rolex. I didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything. In the 90s, we didn't have all these resources. I knew Rolex. I knew Patek. I didn't know, and we didn't know about all the different stuff out there. I only knew a few models. If I knew then what I have access to now, shit, I would have bought up great stuff. I didn't, because we didn't know. So the point is massive opportunities in the space, and
massive opportunities.
What's next?
Yeah. Now, I could tell you about a bunch of the guys that I've sold some of my watches to, everyone from car salesmen who are really into watches to the guy that I buy my shirts from. He loves watches. I'm going to bring him down a bunch of my watches tomorrow to show it off to him. So it's all of that. And some of these folks are have small budgets. Some of them have larger budgets, but almost every one of them is going to have a larger budget over time, because these guys are all starting out, or they're low in it. So they're buying their $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 watches, and that's going to increase. And they're going to be like me. trading out those shitter watches to go for the nicer ones. And you might hang on to a shitter watch or two for those times that you're going down the street in London. That's one of the questions I had for Uzi. He's got that great collection. I'd love to see, does he wear it or does he look at it? Look, there are guys, you had another guy on who basically said, I come home at night and I play with my watches. It's therapeutic to him. And that guy had a heck of a collection that he built very quickly.
Right.
I don't remember, but you had him on about 2-3 weeks ago, and he's it was actually super interesting. I love the stories also, and that's where the community comes from. So I love those stories about how people got into it. But I have 100 questions for Uzi. Like I have 100 more for you. In a few minutes, I'm going to have to go. But
same here.
That's where the community comes up. But I also have to get an order in here because I'd like to get an order in before the market closes.
All right, Baron. Listen, I want to thank you for joining the program. Thank you, everybody, and our show sponsor, of course, Uzi, the show sponsor, $4.99. By the way, this goes into the company. This is part of the revenues. We got a big revenue growth story. So it's not just the e-commerce. We also have super chats, which is part of the big revenue picture. So Uzi just contributed to the fourth quarter. We started the fourth quarter, so we're starting off with $4.99. We've also
got the recurring revenue off of folks like myself who are putting in that big contribution every month. Comes up like
that's right. We have memberships. We have the members. Anybody can join the channel, top secret access, and you become this gives you access to becoming an aristocrat. You click the links or the channel. Where is our thing? Where does it say click to join? Where is my join membership? Where is the membership thing? Click where is subscribe now? Where is it? Here we go. Escape the matrix. Join the era. Basically, you become a baron. That's the name. When you pay when you invest $4.95 a month, basically you become an aristocrat. That's your official title is baron, and all sorts of good things start happening in your life. And you have access to all sorts of content that you don't have. And case in point is Baron Wolf over here.
Colonel, always a pleasure to talk to you. And to the audience, hey, I think it's a lot. I have a lot of fun with this, but I also think this is an opportunity. So it's both of those things. And I really enjoy the whole thing. So looking forward to a lot more.
Thank you, Baron. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all the next time. Remember, nothing here is advice to buy or sell securities. It's issuer-sponsored content. And don't what is it? Do your due diligence.
If you're going to do it, put in those limit orders.
You got it. Thank you, Baron. Okay. Thank you very much.